Hello and welcome to our very first crochet tutorial of 2025. If you are new here, hello, welcome to the channel. I design crochet clothing and then post all the tutorials here for you on YouTube. If that is something that you think you might like, then please feel free to subscribe. That helps me out so much. It keeps me going, making more designs for all of you, so thank you in advance for that. And now, without any further ado, here is the tutorial for this gorgeous ripple design sweater. Before we begin this tutorial, I do feel the need to briefly apologize. I am a little bit sick right now. I know I sound kind of stuffy. I'm sorry for that. It cannot be helped, so hopefully it does not bother you too much. For this tutorial, I am using 3 different shades of this Wait For acrylic blue yarn, and I will put the color names as well as how much yarn I ended up using in the description down below in case you want to know that information. I am also using a 5mm crochet hook. So we're going to start with our very first color here, and this sweater is made up of 2 separate panels. We're making both a front and a back panel. I am making a small to medium size sweater, so I'll be chaining 80 for my first panel. So I'm going to go ahead and cast on and begin chaining 80. So basically you want the length of this chain to reach about halfway across your body with some extra fabric on the sides. That way you have that loose fit for the sweater. I will put up a video on the screen of what this looks like with the panel having 80 chains across. That way you can decide for yourself how many chains you need for your sweater. However, whatever number you do decide on, make sure it is divisible by the number 4. Okay, so now here is my chain of 80, and now I'm going to go ahead and just chain one more to act as a turning chain. I'm going to quickly demonstrate each of the stitch types that you will need for this tutorial. I'll put on the screen here the timestamp so you can skip it if you want to. So first we have our single crochet. You insert your hook right into the stitch, pick up some yarn, pull it through. You should have 2 loops here on your hook. Pick up some yarn and pull it through both loops. Then for the half double crochet, you're going to yarn over once, insert your hook into the stitch, pick up some yarn and pull that through. So now you should have 3 loops here on your hook. You're going to pick up some yarn and you're going to pull that yarn through all 3 loops, like so. For the double crochet, you're going to yarn over once, insert your hook right into the stitch, pick up some yarn and pull that through the stitch. So you should have 3 loops here on your hook. Going to pick up some yarn and pull through 2 loops. So you still have 2 loops here on your hook. Pick up some more yarn and pull through 2 loops. For the treble crochet, you're going to yarn over twice, like so. Insert your hook into the stitch, pick up some yarn and pull it through. So now you should have 4 loops here on your hook. Pick up some yarn, pull through 2. Pick up some yarn, pull through 2. And then pick up some yarn and pull through 2. So there we have a single crochet, a half double crochet, a double crochet, and a treble crochet, which are all the stitches you will need to know for this tutorial. And now we're going to be placing stitches into every single one of these chains all the way down to the start of the row in this exact order that I'm about to tell you. So you're going to start with a single crochet, and then you're going to do a half double crochet, and then a double crochet, and then a treble crochet, like so. So now you should be able to see here we made sort of a slope up. Each stitch is a little bit taller than the last one, and so we're sort of going up on like a ramp here. So now we're going to work our way back down, and we're going to go ahead and do a double crochet, and then a half double crochet, and then a single crochet. So now we have one little hill or mountain shape here. It's just like a little like that. And now we're going to go ahead and make another one. So we're going to do half double crochet, a double crochet, and then a treble crochet. And then working our way right back down, we're going to do a double crochet, a half double crochet, and then a single crochet, like so. So now you can see we have our 2 little ripple shapes starting here, and you're just going to repeat that exact same order of stitches all the way down to the end of the row. So now I am finishing this row off with a single crochet here, which at the end of your row you want to either be ending on a single crochet or a treble crochet. If you are not, that's going to kind of mess up the wavy pattern, so just make sure you're ending on that single or treble crochet here. And now we're going to go ahead and do the next row. So because I ended on a single crochet, I'm going to chain 1. If you ended on a treble crochet, you would chain 3. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. And now we're going to repeat this exact same stitch pattern as we did in the previous row. So you're going to be placing the same type of stitch on top of the stitch of the previous row. So I have a single crochet here, and I'm going to place a single crochet on top of it. If you have a treble crochet here, then place a treble crochet on top. So we've got single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet right on top of this treble crochet here. And it's really important that you pay attention and just make sure you are indeed getting the correct stitch on top of the correct stitch of the previous row. It's really easy to accidentally miss a stitch or just mess up a little bit, and then the entire pattern is just a little bit wonky. So pay attention, check your work often to make sure it's all lined up correctly. And now I'm doing a half double crochet and then a single crochet. And then repeat this same exact stitch pattern, placing the same stitch onto the stitch of the previous row, all the way down to the end of this row here. And just like before, I'm ending this row here with a single crochet, and you should also be ending your row with a single crochet or a treble crochet, same as you did in the previous row. So here we have those first 2 rows completed. So now that we've done 2 rows here of this color, I'm going to go ahead and cast off. So I'm going to chain 1 and then cut my yarn, and I am leaving a little bit of a tail here, that way we can weave it in later. I'm going to go ahead and just pull my hook, pulling that yarn through and securing it in place. So here we have our very first 2 rows of this color completed, and now I'm going to go ahead and bring in our next color. So I'm going to insert my hook right into this stitch here and then bring my new yarn through like so. And now for this next color, we are going to be doing the exact opposite of what we did in these previous 2 rows. So before I started or ended this row with a single crochet, now we're going to be starting with a treble crochet. And if you ended with a treble crochet, now you're going to be starting with a single crochet. So because I'm starting with a treble crochet, I'm going to go ahead and chain 3 and then turn my work. And now, like I said, we're doing the exact opposite as we did in these previous rows. So right into this first stitch, which is a single crochet, I'm going to insert my hook and place a treble crochet. And then I'm going to do a double crochet into the next stitch, a half double crochet, and then a single crochet. And that single crochet there should line up perfectly with the treble crochet of the previous row. So at the highest point of this sort of bump that we've been making should be the lowest point of this color here. So our single crochet and our treble crochet is lined up. I am then going to continue with now a half double crochet, a double crochet, and then a treble crochet here, which this treble crochet should be at the single crochet of the previous row, so the lowest point of the previous row is the highest point of this row. And you're going to repeat that exact same stitch pattern, being the opposite of the stitch pattern before, all the way down to the end of the row. And now I am ending this row on a treble crochet stitch, which is perfect. Again, you want to be ending on either a treble crochet or a single crochet. If you're not ending on either of those, then something got messed up along the way. So here we have our very first row of this color done, and now we're going to go ahead and do one more row with this color. So we're going to go ahead and chain 3 because I'm going to start with a treble crochet, turn my work, and now we're going to repeat this exact same stitch pattern as we did in the previous row. So we're going to go ahead and just do a treble crochet, and then a double, and then a half double, and a single. And this single crochet should land on top of the same single crochet of the previous row. We're repeating that exact same pattern of stitches in the exact same order as the row before, just like we did with these 2 rows of this first color. And I am now finishing this row here with a treble crochet stitch, just like I did in the previous row, which is perfect. That means this row is completely lined up. And as you can see here, I've now done 2 rows with this color. So we've got our 2 colors here, and I'm going to go ahead and cast off. So I'm going to chain 1 and then cut my yarn, leaving a little bit of a tail so I can weave that in later. I'm then going to pull my hook, therefore securing the yarn in place. And now we're going to switch over to our 3rd color. So I'm going to insert my hook right into this stitch here and then bring my new yarn through like so. I'm then going to chain 1 because like we did before, we're going to be doing the opposite as this last row. So if this last row started or ended with a treble crochet, that means we're going to start this row with a single crochet. So I'm chaining 1, turning my work, and now just like I said, we're going to start this row with a single crochet, and then we're going to just follow that same stitch pattern. So single crochet, then half double, then double, and then treble crochet. And this treble crochet stitch should be placed onto the single crochet of the previous row. So the highest point of this color is on top of the lowest point of this color. Now we're going to work our way back down. So we're going to do a double crochet, a half double crochet, and then a single crochet. And again, that single crochet should be on top of the treble crochet of the previous row, so that way the lowest point of this light blue is at the highest point of this like teal blue here. So I'm just going to continue along completing this stitch pattern as I previously demonstrated, and I'll see you once I reach the end of the row. So now I'm ending this row here on a single crochet, which is perfect. It means everything is lined up correctly across the row. And now I'm going to go ahead and chain one and then turn my work. And now, just as I did with the previous colors, I'm going to go ahead and do one row that completely matches the row prior to it. So single crochet here on top of the single crochet of the previous row, and then half double, and then double, and then a treble crochet which lands on top of the treble crochet of that previous row. So you're just going to repeat the exact same stitch pattern just like we did with these other colors of the row before, and work your way all the way down to the end of the row. I am now ending this row with a single crochet, which is perfect. And now you can see here I've got my 2 rows of this light blue, and you can see that it perfectly just sort of fits right into the previous row. And so there we've got our 3 colors, and I'm going to go ahead and cast off. So I'm going to chain 1, cut my yarn, leaving a little bit of a tail to weave that in, and then pull my hook. And now you're going to repeat that exact same process. I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring in this dark blue again, and I'm going to start doing the exact same process of switching colors every 2 rows with the same stitch pattern until I have a panel that is long enough that we can then add the collar. So here I have my completed panel, and I ended up doing 17 different color switches for this. I am making my sweater slightly cropped, so it is going to be a little bit on the shorter side here on my torso. But to measure this, you're just going to take the top of the panel and hold it right along your collar, right where your collarbone is. So right here, you can then measure and make sure you like the length of the panel. So you're going to want to go ahead and mark where you want that collar to start. And we are going to be decreasing, so we're going to make the collar wider as we go along. So I'm going to start a little bit on the smaller side, and I'm going to do about 20 stitches in between. So it's going to be about there, like so. I'm going to go ahead and get some stitch markers or bobby pins, and then using that bobby pin, I'm just going to roughly estimate where this collar is going to land and just mark the stitch on either side, like so. And so here I have my 2 bobby pins or stitch markers on either side of the collar. I put mine about 20 spaces apart, but for now we're just estimating. So now we're going to go back to our workstation, and I'm going to show you how to make the shoulder portion for this panel. So now before we begin crocheting, you just want to make sure that your stitch markers here are evenly placed. So you want to go ahead and count along all the stitches on this side, and then all the stitches from this stitch marker to this corner. And you want to make sure there's the same number of stitches from this corner to this marker, and then from this marker to this corner. You want that to be the same number of stitches on both sides. If it's not, make sure you just adjust these until they are. So that's exactly where I am at now. I've got 30 stitches on either side here of the project, and now we can go ahead and begin crocheting. So I'm going to start over here on the right side of this panel, and I'm just going to be switching colors as I normally would. So I'm going to be bringing in this light blue, which is going to be my next color here, and we're going to go ahead and just pick up this first stitch here on the corner, and then bring that yarn through like so. And then just like we were doing before, we're going to do the exact opposite. So here I started with a single crochet, so this time I'm going to chain 3 and start with a treble crochet. Right into that first stitch, I'm placing a treble crochet, which is the exact opposite of the previous row. So then of course we're going to go ahead and do a double crochet, and then a half double crochet, and then a single crochet. So we're going to be doing this exact same stitch pattern that we did with all of the other rows here on the panel, only you're just going to go until you reach this stitch marker here. So now right here at this stitch marker, I'm going to remove the bobby pin and then just do my last stitch, which is a treble stitch. And with the way it lines up for your project, if you are not ending on a treble stitch or a single crochet, as I expressed you want to do prior, where you always want to end on a single crochet or a treble, in this case, it's okay to end on any stitch of the project. So now we're going to go ahead and turn our work, and I'm going to go back 1 stitch prior. This is the stitch we're going to be starting with. So for me, that's a double crochet. That way I know how many times to chain. Typically, I would start with a treble crochet because that's what I ended on, so then I would chain 3. But I'm going to the stitch I did right before that one, which is a double crochet. So I'm only going to chain 2 because we're going to be doing a double crochet. I'm then going to turn my work. So now we're going to go ahead and do a decrease right away, and you're going to make this decrease stitch in whatever stitch is prior to your last stitch, as I mentioned before. So for me, that is a double crochet, and I will quickly show you how to do it with a single or a treble crochet as well, just in case. But we're doing a double crochet here in my case, and so you're going to insert your hook right into the very first stitch, and then pick up some yarn and pull it through. And then you're going to insert your hook right into the second stitch of the row here, and then pick up some more yarn and pull it through. So now you should have 3 loops here on your hook. So in this case, you can do a half double crochet if that's what you need to do, or I'm going to be doing a double crochet because that's where the stitches line up for myself. So there we have a double crochet. And then if you need to be doing a treble crochet or a single crochet, for the treble, you're going to start by yarning over first, and then picking up some yarn in that first loop, going over to the second stitch, picking up some more yarn. So then you have enough loops here to do a treble crochet. And if by chance you need to decrease with a single crochet, you're just going to do the exact same thing as we did with the double crochet and just do a half double crochet. There really is no way to decrease properly with a single crochet, so it's always going to be either a half double crochet, a double, or a treble. I hope that all made sense. Basically, you are decreasing to the exact same stitch as the one prior to the stitch you left off on. So I'm doing a double crochet, so I'm inserting my hook right into that first stitch, picking up some yarn, inserting my hook right into the second stitch, picking up some yarn, and then double crochet, therefore turning those 2 stitches there into just 1 stitch. So I just did a double crochet, and now I'm following the same stitch pattern as the row before. So then if I just did a double, I'm going to have to do a half double next, and then a single, and then work my way back up with a half double, and then a double, and then a treble. And I'm just going to repeat that same process that I've been doing throughout this entire panel, all the way down to the start of this row. Okay, so I've now reached the start of the row here with this color, and now because we've done 2 rows already with this light blue, I'm going to go ahead and cast off. So I'm going to go ahead and cast off, that way we can switch colors and then proceed. So again, I'm just inserting my hook right into that stitch there, and then bringing my yarn through. So because I ended with a treble crochet here on my previous row, I'm now going to start with a single crochet, and then work my way over to the end of this row, just doing the exact opposite of the row previous, just as I've demonstrated before with the rest of the panel. And then working my way right back down, all the way down to the end of the row here. So now at the end of the row, I'm going to stop when I still have just 2 stitches left here that I have to fill in. And in these 2 stitches, we're actually going to do a decrease. So again, I just did a treble crochet, so my next stitch is going to be a double crochet. I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook right into this next stitch, pick up some yarn, and then insert my hook into the stitch right after it, pick up some more yarn, and then double crochet, therefore doing a decrease. I'm then going to go ahead and do another decrease. So just like before, we're going to go and look at the stitch prior to the one we just did. So I just did a double crochet, but prior to that I did a treble crochet. So we're going to want to do a treble crochet in this next row. So I'm going to chain 3 and then turn my work. And now to decrease into a treble crochet, I'm going to start by yarning over 1, inserting my hook right into that first stitch, picking up some yarn, inserting my hook right into the next stitch, picking up some yarn. So I then have 4 loops here on my hook, and I'm then going to treble crochet like so. And then I'm going to work my way right back. So I'm going to go ahead and do a double crochet, then a half double, and I'm just repeating the exact same stitch pattern as I did in the previous row, working my way all the way back to the end of the row here. So now at the end of this row, I'm going to go ahead and just cast off again. That way we can switch over to our next color. I'm going to go ahead and turn my work, insert my hook right into that first stitch, and then bring my new yarn through like so, and then just repeat the exact same stitch pattern that I've already demonstrated several times throughout this video. You're just doing the exact opposite of the row before you, and you're going to work your way all the way down to the end of the row. And then just like before, I'm going to pause here when I am just 2 stitches away from the end of the row, because we're going to go ahead and do another decrease. So I just ended on a double crochet, so here I need to do a half double crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook right into that first stitch, and then pick up some yarn, and then insert my hook right into the next stitch, pick up some yarn, and then do a half double crochet. I'm then going to go ahead and chain 2, because we're going to be starting on a double crochet, because we're looking at the row or the stitch previous to the stitch that we just did. I'm turning my work, and then we're going to start off with a decrease here. So inserting my hook into that first stitch, and then pick up some yarn, then inserting my hook right into the next stitch, pick up some more yarn, and do a double crochet, therefore decreasing those 2 stitches together. And then just like before, I'm going to follow the exact same stitch pattern as the previous row, all the way down to the start of the row here. And so that's it for the decreased portion of this collar. You can see here on the inside of the panel, we have sort of a slope going down to the start of the panel here. And I'm going to go ahead and cast off and then switch colors one more time, however. And for this last color, which is just going to be 2 more rows here on the shoulder, I'm just going to go ahead and do as we did with the rest of the panel here, with no decrease or anything. I'm just going to work my way down following the opposite stitch pattern of the row previous. And now in these last 2 stitches, I'm not going to do a decrease or anything. I'm just going to go ahead and finish off the row like so, just as you normally would without the decrease. I'm then going to go ahead and do my chain 1 or whatever number of chains you need for the stitch you left off on. And then again, no decrease. I'm just going to work my way back as you normally would, starting with that chain 1, then a half double, double, treble, all the way back to the start of the row. Okay, and now at the end of the row here, I'm just going to go ahead and cast off of this color. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing that we did on this side, switching colors in the exact same order as we already did here. On this side, again, just working up towards our bobby pin or our stitch marker, so it's the same number of stitches as this shoulder portion is. So then once you've completed that shoulder portion for both sides, this panel is finished, and you're going to go ahead and make another panel exactly the same way. Make sure you're doing the exact same number of chains here at the bottom, that you're doing the exact same number of rows for the height of the panel, and that you're doing the exact same number of stitches here for each shoulder portion. So basically just copy and paste this into a second panel. However, when you are doing these shoulder portions up here, after you have finished with the decreases, and then we added those extra 2 rows of this color here without a decrease, do not add this to the second panel. You only want this on one panel because this acts as that little bridge that's going to attach the 2 panels. I'll show you here. So I already have this panel completed. And as you can see here, I did all of my rows for the shoulder here. And then once I finished that last row of decrease, I just cast it off. That way, once we sandwich these together, the colors all line up perfectly and it's a seamless fit all the way across the 2 panels. I now have both my front and my back panel completed, and we can go ahead and attach these together. So I'm going to lay my first panel down flat, and I'm going to lay my second panel right on top of it, lined up. And you want to line up this top part here of our right shoulder to the top part of this shoulder. And we're going to hold these together nice and tight, lining up all of the stitches. And now I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook right into this very first stitch here. And I'm going to pick up that same stitch on the other side. So I've picked up the very first far right stitch on both sides here on my hook, and now I'm going to go ahead and bring some yarn through like so, and then we're going to go ahead and chain 1 to lock it in place, and now we're going to start slip stitching these together. So I'm going to insert my hook right into the next stitch, and then going over to the other side here, I'm going to pick up the second stitch on this side. So I have the second stitch of both panels here on my hook. I'm then just going to pick up my yarn, pull it through both stitches, and then pull it through the loop that's also on my hook. So that's a slip stitch, and that's just securing both sides together. So again, I'm then going to go into the next stitch here, the third stitch on this panel, and then pick up the next stitch on the other panel. So I've got the exact same stitch there on my hook on both sides, pick up some yarn, pull it through both stitches, and then also that loop as well. And I'm keeping my tension very loose. If your tension is too tight, then the fabric of the panels is going to kind of bunch up under the yarn, and it's going to look sort of ripply on your shoulders, and you don't want that. So make sure you keep your tension very loose. And I'm just picking up the next stitch here on both sides, and then pulling that yarn through. And now at this very last stitch here, I'm going to slip stitch together as normal, chain 1, and then go ahead and cast off like so. And I'm just going to pull my hook, securing the yarn in place, and there you can see we have this little slip stitch going through both panels, therefore attaching them together. And now we're going to move over to the other side and do the exact same thing. So I'm going to flip my entire project over, so now this side here is on the right side, and again I'm just going to line up both pieces, and I'm going to insert my hook right into this very first stitch, the furthest right stitch here on both sides, making sure I'm picking up the exact same stitch on both sides. I'm then going to pull my yarn through like so, chain 1 to lock it in place, and then just like before, making sure both sides are lined up and keeping my tension quite loose, I'm going to go ahead and just slip stitch all the way down the rest of this shoulder as well. And then again right here in this last stitch, I'm going to just slip stitch, chain 1, and then cut my yarn, therefore casting off. like so. So now both of our panels are attached here at the shoulder. Okay, so as you can see here, I did already make the first sleeve of the sweater, but now I'm gonna walk you through how to make the sleeves on the second one here. So what you're going to do is you're first gonna take the panels and you're just gonna put it right over your head, and you're gonna go ahead and mark where you want the sleeve to start. So just kind of going up the side here, you're gonna pinch the fabric right under your arm where you want the sleeve to be. So you're gonna make sort of like an armhole here. And I ended up going 13 rows up, so 13 of these like color switches. When I say rows, I mean every time I switch colors, not every row, because we did 2 rows of each color. I'm referring to every time I switched colors. So 13 of these like stripes or color switches up is where I marked the sleeve here. So you can just kind of play around with it and decide where you want the sleeve to start. I went ahead and did the 13 rows up, which for me is this stripe right here, which just makes the perfect size armhole. So then I'm just gonna go ahead and mark the stripe on that front panel like so with just a bobby pin or a stitch marker. And now we can go ahead and make the sleeve. Now that we have marked the row here that we want the sleeve to begin on, we can now begin making the sleeve itself. There are quite a few loose ends here in the way. I do always weave in my loose ends at the very end of the project, so if these get in the way and they get a little bit confusing to see through, I apologize. I'm gonna do my best to still show you even with all of this going on. So the first thing you're going to do is look at whatever color it is here that you have marked. So where my bobby pin or stitch marker is, I'm looking at what color that row is, and that's the color of yarn I want to use. So I'm going to grab that dark blue, and now this is the yarn I will then be using for the first part of the sleeve. And now we're going to go down to the very bottom corners here of the panel, and I'm going to go over to the back panel, and I'm going to insert my hook right into that very first bottom stitch of that panel, and then going over to the front panel here, I'm going to insert my hook into the very bottom stitch on that side as well. So just like we did up here at the top for the shoulders, I'm just simply slip stitching all the way up to where we marked this row here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my yarn through like so. I'm going to take that yarn, pull it through both of the stitches, chain 1 to lock it in place, and then we're going to slip stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook right into the next stitch on both sides and slip stitch, keeping my tension very loose and making sure the stitches are lined up on either side. Okay, so I've now slip stitched my way all the way up the side here, and I've reached this color which I have marked, and I'm going to remove that stitch marker or bobby pin, and I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch these 2 rows as well, like so. So now we have this opening here for the sleeve, and now we can get started on making the sleeve. So I'm going to start with just a single crochet, so I'm going to chain 1. And now we're going to be working into a round, so I'm going to be placing all of my stitches right along here into these stitches. And because these stitches are actually the end or the start of a row when we were just doing the plain panels, it may look a little bit weird, like you're going to have full treble crochets, and then you're gonna have some single crochets, and then you have some like chain sections here, but just every single one of these, any one of these openings is just 1 stitch. So whether it's a single crochet, which is a little hole, or if it's a full treble crochet, which is one of these big stitches here, just treat it like 1 stitch. So I went ahead and I already chained 1, and now we're ready to start with our normal stitch pattern, which we did before. So we're gonna do the single crochet, and then a half double crochet, and then a double crochet, and then a treble crochet. And then just like I've already demonstrated before, we're going to follow that exact same stitch pattern all the way around until you reach the very start of the row here. So now my very last stitch here is going to be a double crochet. And so now I have my first row done here where I worked in a round, and you can see I have that sort of ripple stitch happening all the way around. And we're going to go ahead and just slip stitch the end of this row back to the start of the row. Now there is a very, very good chance that your ending stitch will not line up with your starting stitch like mine did not. I started with a single crochet, I ended with a double crochet. It does not matter. First of all, this is going to be the inside of the sleeve. It's going to be on the bottom of your arm, so the seam really won't be seen very often. And second of all, once you slip stitch, it's really just going to kind of cinch it all in, and it's going to be pretty hard to tell that it doesn't line up perfectly. So don't worry about it if the stitches don't line up. They most likely will not. Once we start increasing, they definitely will not always line up. That's not something we really need to have happen. So right into the very first stitch of the row, right into this very first single crochet stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, pull that yarn through and pull it through all the loops, slip stitching. So therefore we brought the end of this row back to the start of the row, and we have our one just perfect circle row all the way around this opening here. So now with each of these stripes we're doing 2 rows, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 2. So whatever stitch you left off on, you're then going to chain for that number. So I left off on a double crochet, so I'm chaining 2. So then I can turn my work, and then just as I've shown you many other times with this project, you're just going to copy the same stitches back. So I ended on a double crochet, so I'm going to start on a double crochet, and then I'm going to a half double crochet and a single. Okay, so now I am ending this row with a single crochet, which is perfect. On this side of the project, you always want to be ending or starting with a single crochet or a treble crochet, because this is the side that we're always going to be starting on. So you want to make sure it's either the single or the treble. On this side of the project where you work your way all the way around, as I said before, it doesn't really matter what stitch you ended up on. I really hope that this makes sense. I'm doing my best to explain it. If any of it is confusing, feel free to just put a question in the comments and I'll do my very best to explain it to you further. So now that we've completed this row here, I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook right into that first or last stitch of the row, and then just slip stitch together like so. And now we've completed 2 rows here with this color, working in a round for the sleeve. So I'm going to go ahead and cast off of this color. And then I'm going to bring in my next color, so I'm going to turn my work like so. So now right where we ended with that single crochet stitch, I'm going to insert my hook right back into that single crochet, and I'm going to bring in my next yarn color, which is going to be this teal, and I'm going to pull that through. And because before we ended on a single crochet, now we're going to start on a treble crochet. So I'm chaining 3, and then we're going to start with a treble crochet. So we can work our way down with a double, half double, single. You're just going to follow this exact same stitch pattern as we did before all the way around until you reach the end of the row here. So I've ended my row here on a half double crochet, and then I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook right into the top of this treble crochet from the start of the row, pick up some yarn, and slip stitch. And then you're going to chain the number that you need for the stitch you left off on. So I'm going to be doing a half double. That's the last stitch I did. So I'm going to chain 2. That way I can then turn my work and then start off here with a half double crochet. So then you're just going to repeat this exact same stitch pattern all the way around. So I did a half double, now I'm doing a double and then a treble, and I'm just going to repeat the exact same stitch pattern of the previous row all the way back to the start of the row here. And now I am ending here on a treble crochet, which is perfect because, as I've mentioned, you want to make sure you are ending on a treble or a single crochet at this point here. And now we're going to slip stitch, so I'm inserting my hook right into that half double crochet that we started the row with, and I'm just going to slip stitch like so, chain 1 to lock it in place, and then cut my yarn to cast off. And now I'm going to go ahead and switch colors. So again, I'm just going to rotate my work, insert my hook right into that treble crochet we left off on, and then I'm going to go ahead, bring my next color through and start up with the single crochet. So now you can see here that the sleeve is already starting to take shape, and you're just going to repeat that same process, switching colors every 2 rows until the sleeve reaches right above your elbow. So I ended up switching colors 9 times here on the sleeve, which brings the sleeve to just above my elbow here. So now we can go ahead and finish the rest of the sleeve. And so now for the rest of the sleeve, we're just going to slowly be making it a little bit wider. As you can see here on this completed sleeve, it has a little bit of a flare shape, which is quite flattering to the fit of this sweater. So we're just going to be making our sleeve a little bit wider for the rest of this to give it that flare. And the way you're going to do this is quite similar to how we already were crocheting. I have this stitch marker here just to remind myself of which row I ended off on. That way I can keep track of how many rows I'm doing in the flare. So that's what this is here. But what you're going to do is you're going to start your first row like normal. I already did this first row here with this blue yarn. And now right here at our very last stitch of the row, which is supposed to be a double crochet, I'm going to go ahead and do that double crochet into that very last stitch. And now before I slip stitch this closed, we're actually going to do an increase. So I just did a double crochet. I need to do a half double crochet next. So I'm going to yarn over and place that half double crochet into the exact same stitch of the double crochet, therefore turning 1 stitch into 2 and completing an increase. I'm then going to slip stitch right into the very first stitch here of the row, just as we normally do, like so. And now we're going to start our second row of this blue yarn with an increase as well. So I'm going to think back to the last stitch I did, which was a half double crochet. And then after that half double crochet, I would have done a single crochet. So that's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to chain one and turn my work. And now I'm going to start with a single crochet stitch right into this half double crochet stitch here. So single crochet, and then yarn over and half double crochet into that same exact stitch, like so. So again, we just turned one stitch into two, and now you're going to work your way back all the way to the start of the row as normal. So now at the end of this row, I'm going to be ending with a treble crochet, which is perfect, and we are not going to do any increases at the very start or the very end of each color, just on the other side here. So I ended with that treble crochet. I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into that first stitch there of the row to complete that row and then complete that color. So I'm going to go ahead and cast off and then switch colors. Insert my hook right into that treble crochet that we just made and then pick up my new yarn. And now I'm going to chain one, start with a single crochet. So I'm just going to work my way all the way around this row until I reach the very end here. So then with the last stitch of the row here, I am ending on a double crochet. And then we're going to go ahead and do that increase as we did before. So I'm going to do the next stitch as well, which is going to be a treble crochet. So therefore we turned one stitch into two. I'm then going to go back to our very first single crochet here of the row and just slip stitch this row together as we've done before. And now we're going to do another increase starting off. So I'm going to think ahead of what the next stitch would be. So if I just did a treble crochet, the next stitch would be a double crochet. So I'm going to chain two for that double crochet, turn my work right into that first stitch here. I'm going to place a double crochet like so, and then place that treble crochet. And then you're just going to repeat that exact same stitch pattern of the previous row all the way around back to the start of the row. And now I'm ending this row here on a single crochet. So now I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook right into this stitch here, and then slip stitch, securing this in place so then I can cast off. And then you're just going to repeat that exact same method. So it's no different than how we were doing the rest of the sleeve, only now you're just going to do an increase at the very end of this row and at the very start of this row. So you should be increasing twice for each color, and then you're going to go ahead and just repeat that same process until the sleeve reaches your wrist or however long you want the sleeve to be. So here is the sweater so far. I've got both of the sleeves completed here, and you can probably also tell I went ahead and wove in all of those loose ends. And now I'm going to go ahead and flip this right side out because currently we have these sort of messy seams on the sides here. So we're going to flip this right side out so it looks a lot cleaner, like so. And now we have pretty much a finished sweater. There's just one last detail we're going to do to really bring it all together, because right now when I try this on, you can see that the opening here is quite wide. And if this is your thing, if you want like a slouchy off the shoulder type sweater, then you're good to go. This is a completed sweater, but I want to bring this in a little bit more and add a collar to the top. So let's go back to our workstation and add a quick collar to the top of this sweater. So I'm going to be making the collar of this sweater in just one of these three colors. So I'm going to be doing this light blue here. So going up here to the opening we have, I'm just going to go ahead and insert my hook right into any one of these stitches around the opening. I'm going to go kind of towards the corner here where it matches up with this like shoulder portion. But it doesn't really matter. Any one of these stitches along the opening, you're going to insert your hook, and then you're going to pull your yarn through like so, and then you're going to chain as many chains as you want the collar tall. So I want the collar to be 6 chains tall. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 6. So this is how tall my collar is going to be. And then you're going to chain 1 extra as a turning chain like so. And then you're going to go ahead and just place a single crochet into every single chain stitch all the way back down to the start of your project. So each of these 6 chains, I'm just placing 1 single crochet, like so. And now that we're back flush with the project, we're going to slip stitch to bring this down completely flush with the project. So this is the stitch that we just did our chain off of. So I'm going to go into the stitch right after that one, and I'm just going to slip stitch like so, therefore bringing this down flush with the project. And then I'm going to go over to the next stitch, which is going to be this one here, and I'm going to slip stitch again. And then I'm going to go over to one more stitch and slip stitch. So you're slip stitching into 3 stitches every single time. So I'm going to go ahead now and just chain 1, and then I'm going to rotate my work a little bit. So now I'm working back up into this little section here of our chain and our single crochets, and we're going to do what's called a rib crochet. So going up into this little section of chain 1s, I'm going to insert my hook right into the first stitch, And instead of picking up the entire stitch as you normally do, I'm actually going to look at the top here where you can see that each little stitch is made up of 2 little pieces of yarn. I'm going to insert my hook in between those 2 strands of yarn and pick up just the back one, like so, and then place a single crochet into just that back loop. So again, this is broken up into 2 little strands of yarn. So I'm inserting my hook in between the 2 strands, picking up just the back loop, and then single crocheting. And I'm going to repeat this all the way up until I reach the very last stitch. And then in this last stitch here, I'm just going to pick up both strands of yarn like so, and then place a single crochet, because you always want this stitch here to be just a plain single crochet because it's going to have a cleaner edge at the top of the collar. So now I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, and then I'm rotating my work again so we can work our way right back down. So then again, right into this first stitch, I'm just going to do a normal single crochet. And then right into the next stitch, we're going to do more rib crochet. So I'm going to the top of the stitch here and I'm picking up just the back loop. And I'm going to do a single crochet, and you're going to do this 5 more times so that way you have 6 stitches all the way down. And now that I've completed all 6 stitches here for the collar, we're going to go back into slip stitching. So this is the stitch here where we last did our slip stitch. So I'm going to go over to the stitch right after it and then slip stitch. And then the one after that also gets a slip stitch. And then the third stitch here also gets a slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain 1, turn my work. And now we're working right back into this little rib section, and we're going to go ahead and rib crochet again. So I'm going into the back loop, and I'm going to do 5 stitches of just back loop single crochet. And then in the 6th or top stitch here, I'm going to do just a normal single crochet, chain 1, rotate my work. And then starting off in this very first stitch, we're going to do a single crochet, and then rib crochet or crochet into the back loop of these last 5 stitches all the way down to the base of your project. And then you're going to go back to the base here, pick up the next stitch at the body of the project, slip stitch into these next 3 stitches, like so, chain 1, and turn your work. So you can repeat the exact same process over again. And you're just going to continue this all the way around the entire opening at the top of the sweater here. So I've now worked my way all the way around the collar here for the sweater, where this last row and this first row are essentially touching here. And so I'm finishing off at the very top of this last row. I'm going to go ahead and cast off. So I'm going to chain 1 and cut my yarn. And I am cutting my yarn with a little bit of a longer tail than what I normally use, because we're going to use this to help sew together the collar. So I have a little bit of a longer tail. I'm going to go ahead and cast off, and then I'm going to get a darning needle. And now I'm going to thread that tail of yarn just right through my needle, like so. And then we're just going to go ahead and sew these 2 rows together, securing it into one perfect circle. So keep in mind that currently your sweater is on the right side facing out. So when you're sewing these together, you want to make sure that any seam or messy edge is on the inside of the collar. So I'm going to sort of flip it inside like this, so that way the seam is on the inside of the collar. And I'm going to go ahead and just stitch both of these rows together, like so. So now you can see that the collar is attached and you can't really see where that seam is on this side, which is perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and just weave in these last 2 little loose ends here, and then I will have a fully completed sweater. I really hope that you found this tutorial to be easy to follow, and if you do have any questions or just anything you want to say, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. And then also, if you liked this video, then please give it a like, and then also subscribe. I appreciate that so much. If you wanted to share with me your finished design, then feel free to do so over on Instagram, which I'll have linked in the description down below. I always love hearing from you guys over there and seeing what colors you picked for these designs and tutorials. So I look forward to hearing from you in any one of those ways, and I will see you again very soon with another tutorial or another vlog. Whatever comes next, I'll see you again very soon. Goodbye.